Are we focusing? Are you gonna focus on me? Here, thank you. Kind of, sort of. All right. Does it really matter if it's focused? I don't know. Let's begin with a welcome. Greetings, welcome to this channel. This is a difficult topic because we are still learning more as the day goes. It is honestly a to be determined situation. And if you clicked this video, you've already read the title most likely, and you have an idea of what I'm gonna say. So I am a person that was late diagnosed as neurodivergent. Specifically, I was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar. And about 4 months after that, I confessed to some traumatic events that happened in my past and was also given the diagnosis of having PTSD. I was recently told I had a visit with a new doctor on September the 12th, to be specific. And that new psychiatrist let me know that most likely there is a high chance that I have been misdiagnosed. So let's roll it back and let's talk about it. So first and foremost, what is ADHD and what were the symptoms that I was presenting? So with ADHD, it is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I honestly don't even want to read you the Google definition of what ADHD is, because it is well known, at least for those that have been in the mental health area or even took in psychology in school, that most of the research studies on that mental health issue have been done on white males. And I obviously am not presenting as a white male, am I now? First and foremost. So what were the symptoms I was presenting? I have always been a very high energy child. However, I don't really recall having too much of an issue with my attention. It was more so focus. It was staying focused for me. And if I wasn't interested in the topic, it was very easy for me to go into dreamland and using my imagination. I've always been a very creative person. I love to read. Became more athletic as the years came on. And I don't really want to say that ADHD was the reason why I suck out. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. I went to a psychiatrist in the first place. I was going to seek help from a mental health professional due to me falling into a deep depression and not really being able to shake this feeling of overwhelm during that time. Now, I would be considered a very successful person. Graduated college with a bachelor's degree. I didn't do very well in high school though, but it doesn't really matter as long as you get the diploma. You got the diploma. So I graduated high school, went to college for law enforcement, minored in psychology, and moved up and promoted through the ranks with my company, with a company, and ended up being a salaried leader. Right, very successful to most. I was making a fair pay at the time that I seen the psychiatrist. So the idea wasn't that I was having trouble making it in the world. The idea was more so that I was hiding how hard I was struggling to regulate my moods. Okay. So I was getting very irritable, temperamental, hard to stay happy. I've always been one of my taglines is drink water, be grateful. Another one is make them wonder how you're still smiling. So what I've realized was that I was masking a lot of my symptoms behind my smile. Especially being in the working field, it's taught to you to leave your personal issues behind. When you walk through the front doors, leave it at the door. You're here to do a job, and especially with leading people, they've got their own problems, and most of the time as a manager, those people lean on you in order to help you through those problems. So it did get to the point where I felt like I didn't have space to really talk about what was going on with me. All right, cool. So then I go to see the psychiatrist off of recommendation from a friend, and I kid you not, the intake form was about maybe 20 questions, and it was a sliding scale type of question. So how often do you have this exhibit in your life? And you very often, somewhat, every day, da 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 da. And when I came in on that day to visit the psychiatrist, I spent maybe 5 minutes discussing what was going on with me, and he went ahead and started to list the prescriptions that he wanted me to be on. Excuse me. Now, as a person that's never looked for or sought out mental health help or worked with a mental health professional, I didn't know what good looked like, and my intuition was nudging me like, hey, I don't think this is right. However, I've also know to trust the process. So I went home, and as a happy person, you know, I shouldn't even say a happy person, as a person who's been very much taught to listen to authority, I took my medication, and it started to help for the first 2 months. And what led from that was that I ended up gaining the confidence to report a sexual harassment issue that had been going on with me and my supervisor at work. So once I told my psychiatrist about what was going on, I told HR about what was going on. Essentially, I was put on to medical leave. Cool. We're getting somewhere, right? More symptoms started to present, like panic attacks, uncomfortable in my own skin, not wanting to be around people, not wanting to be touched, really this overwhelming sense of anxiety that I was going to get in trouble for saying something. And I'm going to pause here and say that if you have ever dealt with sexual harassment, if you've ever dealt with assault, molestation, any of those things, and I'm going to have to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this, I want you to know that it's not your fault. And I'm saying that to you just as much as I'm saying it to myself yet again, because even 9 months down the road of reporting this, I still have those questions on, did I do something wrong? So that's a lot to process, right? And I reported this in February, so I've been out of work for several months. Now, one of the ways that the company was able to mitigate this situation was to move me, since they were not going to release this person from their roster. That person still works at the company. So they went ahead and moved me from one state to another, which meant that I needed to find a new mental health professional. So again, September the 12th, I just realized and was told that there should have been more testing done before the diagnosis of ADHD was given to me. And I also was on a stack of medication that was not necessarily treating the trauma, because the trauma that I experienced at my job was not the only trauma that I've ever experienced in my life, okay? So I wrote down some things. So the next thing that I wanted to go through was how did I feel about it. And I'm gonna pause here because I have some food on the stove, so I'm gonna grab that before it burns. Okay, now that I have my soup, let's talk about how I felt about being diagnosed in the first place. Being a Afro-Latina woman, it was a lot to process. I've always had some information about the mental health space since my grandmother was diagnosed with dementia. And I've always been very interested in the mental health space. A little recall, I went to school for psychology. So, well, minored in psychology, and I loved it. So I've always been very interested in how the brain works and things like that. But I do feel like right now in the US, it's almost as if when you get diagnosed with something, you're labeled as mentally ill. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. And I've grown more empathetic day by day for people who are undiagnosed, because one, you don't even have the resources to manage, and you have no idea that there's a more productive way. Then there was the thought of how far could I have gotten if I had known that I was neurodivergent from my childhood. Like, what accommodations would have been given to me, and how would have that made me excel? Because I was always considered a gifted child. Like, I was very intelligent as a child. I loved to read. I loved to just learn. I loved that. So how far could I have gotten if I had known? And that was like a big hurdle that I had to get over because I can't change the past. I can't go back and tell little me, you know, you're different, you're gonna need some accommodations. And even the thought of having accommodations, does that make you less than? Because you have to do things differently? Like, it's a whole lot to process. I started to see it as a superpower about 4 or 5 months in. Unfortunately, around that same time as I was continuing my bodybuilding career, I started to work with a new coach, and that coach pulled me off my medications. And I started to spiral, unfortunately. Outwardly, you would probably have never known, but it definitely was not a good time for me to feel like getting out of bed. Like, one of the symptoms that you hear more from females than males is that there's this sense of like, there's so much that I need to do that you don't even know what to do first. And that's dealing with the executive function. So knowing how to prioritize. Then there was a sense of, I'm out of work. I'm out of my 9 to 5, so is it okay to just lay in bed all day? I don't know. And that was a lot to like work through. Yeah, there's a lot to work through. Luckily, for my incessant need to work, I fixed that with training myself to see healing as my work. I worked through a lot of affirmations and a lot of breath work, a lot of meditation. Excuse me, my dog is eating something that she's not supposed to be eating. Yeah, place. I was lucky enough to get a service dog, but she's still in training. So there's that. I might edit that out. I don't know. Anyway, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was how did I feel being medicated. And with the 2 medications that I was given, actually 3, I was good to go as long as I was not thinking about it too much. And I say that because I have never been, I can't say never, never say never. I haven't been a person that's been on continuous medication. I take supplements like vitamins, but when it comes down to like needing to take a pill, that need is a lot to work through. As a healthy person, to be told that you need to take this pill in order to function, it was like, do I really? So when that coach, that bodybuilding coach came along and was like, come off the medication, I was cool with it, but then I realized that wasn't me at my best. And I see myself falling into using coping mechanisms that I worked hard to not use anymore. So there's that. There is that. I currently don't mind being medicated. I associate it more with like a person that has high blood pressure. They're gonna take their medication. They're not gonna feel bad about taking their medication. I also had like this sensation of like, do I really need it? Because the stimulant that I was on was one that people use recreationally and abuse, so I didn't want to be lumped into that group with them, if that makes sense. So the last one is what now? Working with this new psychiatrist, I have been given a medication to help me sleep. My insurance did not approve the medication that's supposed to help with the trauma. So we'll see what happens with that on this upcoming Monday. And she also referred me to a different psychologist that'll be able to do testing to see if I am actually ADHD and what exact point of the spectrum that I would be on, so that I can have a detailed list of accommodations that I would need. Yeah. So not only was I late diagnosed, I was misdiagnosed. Maybe. Who knows? So I'm making this channel not only to record and document the changes so that when I work with my psychiatrist, I could easily, notate what's different, what's working, what's not. But also to share for those that are going through the same thing and those that are interested in figuring out if they are also neurodivergent. This video is not going to be very long. I think this is pretty much the end of it. So I appreciate you for listening and sitting here with me as I process. And yeah, see you around.